Cobblestones the color of old bone lined the damp streets of Bravos, whisper-slick beneath a morning drizzle that rolled down the shutters of the house of black and white. Beneath its solemn doors lay silence, but within, candle smoke curled like pale spirits around niches of forgotten gods. A tithe of pilgrims waited on benches, eyes downcast, each daring to believe that the many-faced God would grant the mercy they begged in fearful whispers. Past them drifted a young acolyte whose sex no one could place, robes gray as wet slate, steps soundless. They stopped before a narrow alcove where a man of middle years knelt in prayer, bald crown bent low. His heavy wool cloak, pinned with a tiny 8-pointed star of gold, told the watchful that he had sailed from Lys, a merchant house prone to excess, enemies, and sudden losses. When the man finished his mutterings, he pressed 2 fingers to the black half of the temple doors, leaving a smear of tears. The acolyte beckoned. Together they glided through passages as quiet as crypts until stone yielded to a low chamber of water scented faintly of copper. Candles floated there in tiny clay bowls, each an ember of longing. Above them waited a figure robed in robes of deeper gray, cowl thrown back to reveal a gentle, unremarkable face, only the eyes alive with shifting colors like oil upon a puddle. Many in Bravos knew that face as that of a kindly Lorati priest. Some far away remembered a Lorati sellsword once called Jachin Hagar. The many-faced god alone recalled every skin the soul beneath had borrowed, and every name it had abandoned to dust. The Lyseni bent low. "I bring an offering," he said in the tongue of the free cities, voice rasped by fear and a week at sea. "And a prayer." The one who might be Jachin said nothing. Silence here weighed more than oaths. The merchant drew out a purse and set it on the ledge. Stags of silver, crescents of pale jade, but mostly square Volantine marks of purest gold. Enough to bankrupt a minor house, enough to buy death itself. "A life," whispered the Lyseni, throat bobbing. "The Silver Queen who claims Meereen." No candle flickered at the words, yet the air cooled. The kindly man looked to the merchant's shaking hands, to the coins, to the drifting flames. At length he replied, "All men must die." "Vala Morgulis," breathed the merchant at once, eyes shining with relief. "Whom does the many-faced god require as payment?" The question came soft as snow, but it fell like a headsman's sword. The Lyseni swallowed. I give my own life if need be, once the work is done. I have lived long enough to see my house ruined by dragons and slaves. Let my death by hers." The man in the gray robe dipped 2 fingers into the black water and traced a crescent across his brow. "Your coin has been weighed, your life measured. The price is sufficient." The Lyseni sagged forward, tearful with the strange ecstasy of despair granted purpose. Already, though he could not see it, shadows gathered around him, gentle as midwives. By nightfall he would drink a cup of sweet poison and sleep beneath the still lagoon. From his sacrifice a contract was born weightier than gold. A moon waned and waxed before the assassin set sail. The sea wind carried the salt stink of old voyages and the promise of new masks. On the deck of a modest trader bound for Slaver's Bay, a maid-of-all-work named Vanya scrubbed tar off planks. Her hair was mousy, her back bent, her Bravosi lilt artfully dulled by low Valyrian. The master of the ship thought her barely worth the copper a day he paid. He never knew her eyes were counting the pulse in his throat whenever he walked by. He never saw the blade hidden in a bundle of laundered sailcloth, or felt the weight of ancient oaths that steered her quiet hands. At dusk, Vanya would retreat to her cramped berth, breathe slow, and remember faces. A young Tyroshi boy choking on almond paste. A Septon smiling in sleep before a pillow muted the last confession from his lips. A sellsword who never rose from a latrine when that subtle pinch of basilisk blood took his heart. Each memory brushed the inside of her mind like a painter laying strokes upon wet plaster. Each was a prayer. They sighted Meereen's pastel pyramids after 12 days. Columns of dark smoke rose from the harpy's crown where scorch marks still scarred the stones. Reminders of beasts who breathed fire. Vanya watched dragons will above broken bronze harpies and thought how strange that a creature meant for killing should be worshipped while the faceless men were feared. Both served death. Only the dragon delighted in spectacle. The faceless gave mercy, precise and unseen. Yet this time mercy's hand would close around a queen who freed slaves and chained merchants. Justice, the Lysini had murmured. Vengeance, hissed other lips in fancy halls of Volantis and Karth. The many-faced god cared little what words mortals chose. A life weighed a life. Meereen festered. Streets once swept by slaves were stained with rot where corpses of sons of the harpy swung from poles, flies humming. Perfumed nobles walked with silk scarves pressed to noses, pretending not to gag. Graffiti bled onto every wall. Harpies impaled, dragons in chains, crude couplings of pale queens and dark eunuchs. Hope and hatred mingled in equal parts, and in the cracks between them, coin flowed. Vanya found lodgings in the shadow of the Green Graces Temple, in a tenement whose owner rented squalor by the hour, no questions. She became Lenora, a pox-scarred laundress seeking work in the Great Pyramid. Her references were forged with red seastone ink. Her accent shifted to the gutter vowels of former Hasdin pit slaves. Within 3 days she passed beneath the great bronze gates, carrying a bundle of freshly boiled tunics for the unsullied. Daenerys Stormborn held court in the throne room that had once glorified harpy masters. Now silk banners of black and red, bleeding suns embroidered with 3 dragons, draped the pillars. Fire, blood, freedom. Lenora crept past archways, memorizing clocks of foot patrols, tasting the air for poison. Every corridor whispered betrayal. Eunuch officers muttering of Sel's-word greed. Meereenese nobles plotting with fearful eyes. Even the queen herself torn between mercy and the call of steel. At night, Lenora perched on a ledge overlooking the menagerie where Regal and Viserion roared in fetid darkness, smelling fouler by the day. She watched how keepers approached with trembling torches, noting angles, gates, chains. The pyramid had thick walls, but death seeped through mortar like damp. Weeks unfurled. Jacqueline, if Jacqueline it was, wore 4 faces in that time. The laundress Lenora, an old beggar coughing in alley dust, a Sel's-word seeking work with the Second Sons, and a red-veiled priestess from the shadow. Each persona drifted near the queen, gathering details like needles drawing thin crimson threads through silk. Who guarded her bedchamber after the 3rd bell? Which cup did she favor at sup? How often did she wander the terrace to feel the desert wind on her cheeks? Nothing was constant save her restlessness, and her dragon's hunger. Death would come swift when it came. Yet the longer the faceless watched, the more each thread tangled in a web of conflicting truths. Daenerys, the breaker of chains, sat alone some nights, eyes rimmed with sleepless charcoal, whispering names of cities she had burned, children lost, lies sweetened by courtiers. Lenora once glimpsed her on a balcony, letting tears salt the marble rail. Compassion pricked like an unwanted splinter. The faceless men believed pity a vanity, and vanity a crack in iron. Still, the crack opened. One dawn, clad in the leathern vest of a new Sel's-word persona named ORM Quickhand, the assassin moved through the practice yard where Grey Worm drilled novices. Sweat turned sand into mud as the unsullied thrust in perfect unison. ORM's gaze lingered on their captain, a man who had known castration and slavery, who now lived only to protect the woman targeted. In that hour, ORM understood that to sever the queen's thread was to cut theirs as well. Armies moved for her, freedfolk prayed to her. One life weighed many, but the contract could not be unbound. To falter was to deny the god his due, and that price was always one's own face. That afternoon, a brass gong summoned Meereen to the reopening of Daznak's pit. Daenerys had consented at last, hoping blood sport might placate the masters and drain restless violence from the city. Thousands streamed over cracked tiles, colors bright beneath pitiless sun. Duraznak stank of old gore and new coin. Beneath its tiers skulked hawkers of honeyed locusts, watered wine, powdered hashish. ORM Quickhand joined a queue of pit fighters presenting weapons for inspection. A 2-edged bravo's blade hung at his hip, Hidden in its guard lay a sliver of glass, ground from a temple votive, invisible until tapped free. One graze would draw no more than a drop of blood. Yet within the glass slept basilisk venom refined by Bravosi alchemists until a single heartbeat would turn bright skies black and silence thought forever. A roar drowned the gong as Daenerys appeared high in the royal box. Sunlight crowned her silver-gold hair until she seemed armored in fire. Hisdar zo Lorak posed beside her, his smile stiff as lacquer. Missandei stood ready with linen to dab the queen's brow. Barristan the Bold hovered like a weary sentinel. Dragons circled beyond the walls, shadows passing over sand. Jaqen's breath slowed. The moment had arrived. Fighters filed onto brown sand, each bowing to the queen. Orem knelt, head lowered. When he rose, his eyes flickered serpentine green, the color of Ultho's jade, a hue none in Meereen had yet seen him wear. The blade slid free, glinting wicked invitation. The melee commenced. Steel rang, sand sprayed, cheers swelled. Orem danced between giants and spearmen, every feint crafted to drive him closer to the royal box. A fallen axe haft served as foothold. He sprang, rolling under a bullwhip blade, whipping sand to blind a corsair. With each breath he closed distance, counting steps, feeling the vial of bishop's milk tucked in his cuff ready to break against his tongue. The antidote to venom should a droplet kiss him. At 30 paces, the queen's lilac eyes found his. Something passed between them, a curious recognition, as if she sensed a storm approaching. In that heartbeat Barristan shouted, raising hand. Unsullied surged to shield their queen. Too late. Orem spun, blade flashing, feinting at a towering Astapori gladiator, then springing onto the man's shield, vaulting. One perfect arc would carry him to the wooden lip of the box where a single slash could graze pale skin. But the air convulsed with a deafening shriek. Drogon diving, talons tearing cloth pavilions, black scales blotting the sun. Chaos erupted. Sandstorm winds of beating wings hurled men flat. Orem's leap became a tumble. He struck sand hard, ears ringing. The giant gladiator he had used as ladder flailed blindly, cudgel catching Orem's ribs with the sound of snapping twigs. A cough sprayed blood across his sleeve. Agony burst along his side. Drogon's maw opened, torrents of fire consuming stands, melting gilded railings. People stampeded. Daenerys leapt into the pit, calling to her child with voice ragged by command and pleading love. Flames licked her, yet she pressed on, fearless, unto the beast. Orem watched through red mist as dragon and mother became one silhouette of dawn-colored flame, then vanished skyward, iron wings beating thunder. Silence, then sobbing cacophony. The queen was gone. Smoke blurred the world. Orem crawled to shadow, clutching fractured ribs. The vantage was lost. The moment slipped like sand between fingers. Failure tasted of copper and bile. The contract remained. The faceless man must adapt. Perhaps the road now led into the wastelands where Daenerys had disappeared. A face would follow. That night, as the city screamed of dragons and devils, Lenora the laundress slipped out a sally port with refugees fleeing sons of the Harpy reprisal. She shed the mask of Orem in an alley, burning the false beard, smearing soot over the cell's-word leathers. In the bundle at her back nestled 3 new faces. A Dothraki widow cheek-tattooed with tears, a Carthene perfumer, a slave boy from Laser. Any might serve upon the next crossing, yet doubt nod. Watching Daenerys tame Drogon with a whisper had stirred something ancient. The first breath a child draws when it understands that life burns brighter than fear. To kill such a flame felt wrong, but oaths were chains forged of choice. Across desert wastes baked bone-white, hoofbeats drummed. Khal Jacko's Khalasar rode hard on rumors of a silver queen reborn in blood and fire. Among the thousands thundered a new rider, face wind-scoured, eyes hidden by dusty scarves. A woman called Aedra. She spoke Dothraki crudely, but what mattered was the hush in her stride and the way knives vanished into her boots. No one knew she had set the stallion's last owner quietly adrift beneath moonlight, throat parted by a kiss of glass. Nights under those pitiless stars sharpened memories. The Lyseni merchants plead justice. The trembling of the queen's hand as she stroked Drogon's scales. Mercy. Justice, mercy, two masks of the same god. Aedra whispered to the darkness. A girl has promises. The wind answered with sand hiss that might have been. A girl has doubts. She dreamed of warm arms around broken chains, of cities rising from ashes. She woke with dagger poised over her own heart before dawn's chill could steal resolve. Days later, the Khalasar found the queen alone amid scorched grass. They encircled her like wolves circling a lone doe, but the wolves forgot the sky. Drogon fell upon them in shadow and flame, scattering stallions, turning riders into torches. In the panic, Aedra dismounted, walked through fire that burned everything but her purpose. 10 strides away, Daenerys staggered, hair matted with soot, face drawn with thirst. Golden eyes met brown and saw no threat. The assassin's hand drifted to the thin shard of glass hidden beneath her tongue. All it required was a spit flick to embed beneath royal skin. But flames haloed Daenerys, and in that furnace light her frailty shone. Cracked lips, bleeding feet, hope burning in sockets where tears should be. She whispered past exhaustion, "Help me." It was not a command. It was the plea of every slave who had ever looked to her for deliverance. Aedra tasted ash and something sweeter, choice. She sliced her palm with a dragonglass spear tip lying broken in grass, blood welling. She pressed it to the queen's chapped mouth. "Blood of my blood," Aedra said in rough Dothraki. "Your enemies are mine." Daenerys blinked, confusion giving way to faint smile. Drogon snorted smoke, eyes pits of ember. The moment sealed itself. Beneath a sky of blistering blue, a contract unspoken eclipsed the one signed in gold and sorrow. The Faceless Men had taught that a life may pay for a life, yet here was a heavier truth. A life could save a life and still serve death's design, for death would reap all in time. Months unfurled in the burnt plains. Word reached Meereen that the Silver Queen led a Khalasar of freed slaves and broken riders, forging them into something unseen since the doom of Valyria. A nation not of blood but of will. The sons of the Harpy rallied. Yunkai and Volantis prepared fleets. In the shadow of the Great Pyramid, conspirators whispered that only the Faceless could still rectify fate. Yet the last whisper was carried west upon a gull's wings and lost above the summer sea, perhaps because the one meant to hear it no longer listened. Aedra walked at the queen's side, teaching her the silent language of blades, weaving new paths beyond the maps of men. She slept light, dreaming of water candles and a pool of black so still it showed all masks at once. In dreams, the kindly man beckoned from across the water, lips motionless, eyes limitless. He did not chastise. He simply waited, teaching the final lesson, that death is not denial but completion. One dawn, as the Khalasar crested a ridge of red rock, scouts returned with tidings. Ahead lay the Skahazadan River, swollen with spring melt, its waters trembling with the drums of Valentin's war galleys. The path to Meereen was barred by spears and chain. Daenerys turned to her blood riders, to Grey Worm and Dario and the others who had found her. But her gaze lingered longest on Aedra, the one who had no name and every name. "We cross tonight," the queen declared. "Fear lives only in chains. We break them." Aedra nodded, feeling the weight of the shard of basilisk glass she still carried. Sometime soon, she knew, the many-faced god would send another to finish the work she had forsaken. When that day came, her debt would be measured. Perhaps mercy would call for her own life laid down in place of the queen's. Perhaps she would greet the coming assassin as brother, offer him wine, and speak the prayer, Vala Morgulus. But not tonight. Tonight she would guard Daenerys Targaryen, the woman she had been hired to kill, the woman she had chosen to follow, across a river bright with moonlight and the promise of impossible worlds. The Khalasar roared, hoofs pounding. Dragons swept overhead, teeth bared to the stars. In their thunder, Aedra heard the echo of a coin striking stone, reverberating through time. One life bought another. One choice birthed many. The story had only begun. And somewhere, In the house of black and white, a candle guttered out, its flame joining the dark. Another flared to life beside it, steady and new. The many-faced god was satisfied. Dust braided the wind that swept across the Skahazaden flats, carrying the river's moist breath over plains still scorched by dragon fire. Daylight faltered behind copper clouds, turning water to dull steel. Dothraki outriders reined in along the crest of a dune, hooves stamping shallow craters into the baked crust. Below, the Volantene camp sprawled like a rust-hued rash across the eastern bank. Rows of striped pavilions, masts of chained ships bristling from the waterline, wooden palisades hammered together with slave labor captured in raids no one in the Yunkish coalition admitted aloud. Lanterns blinked to life, fireflies harnessed by fear, until the whole encampment smoldered on the twilight edge of night. Aedra watched from her perch beside Daenerys' makeshift command post. Nothing more than a pair of weather-beaten tent poles supporting gray canvas, yet it felt like a throne hall in exile. The queen's presence made such illusions real. She paced a narrow strip of cleft stone, hands clasped behind her back to conceal their tremble. Grey Worm, Barristan, Dario, and the newly appointed Sellsword Captain Jasmone Fry fielded reports, but Daenerys drifted through each voice as if reading glyphs only she could see. Aedra studied her, noting the bruise-shadowed eyes, the cracked lips, the fresh scabs on forearm and calf, marks of a mortal body refusing to surrender. In every unguarded gesture flickered the memory of that Meereen's balcony when the assassin had hesitated. Hesitation once might still cost them all. Tonight there could be none. The queen halted, gaze spearing the firelit heads bent around her. When darkness deepens, the fleet will weigh anchor to secure mid-river. They must not. If their chains close, we lose the crossing. We strike first. Her voice rasped like flint, striking sparks from resolve. Barristan's silver brows rose. Your Grace, our Khalasar numbers scarcely 9,000 riders, half without proper lances. The Unsullied stand fewer than 5,000. The Volantene's bow, AST 3 times that beneath Captain General Malirio, freeborn spears, cell sails, elephant core. Their chainship engines can rake us into ribbons before we reach their hulls. Not if the engines are blind, Daenerys answered. Not if the chainship's anchor cables part. She turned to Aedra, as though the faceless woman's thoughts had been echoing into her ear all along. Can it be done? Aedra's face betrayed nothing. A river is a road, she said, and every road has secret doors. I can open one. Dario chuckled low in his throat. An assassin playing saboteur. Why not? I shall row beside her, maiden's honor. Grey Worm stiffened. Unsullied row. Dario Naharis guard the queen. Subtle emphasis left no doubt he still mistrusted the Tyroshi Sellsword. Aedra ignored the squabble. She crouched, dragging her dagger's point through sand, scratching the outlines of galleys chained in triangular formation. 2 escorting dread barges flanking a central flagship whose deck bristled with scorpions. These outer hulls hold the chain spools, she said. Cut them and the river's current will drag the anchor block astray. One slave child with a saw could do it if he lived long enough. I am not a child. The queen knelt, smoothing a thumb over Aedra's sketch. Take 2 good swimmers, she whispered. Return alive. Aedra inclined her head. Firelight glinted off the thin scar she kept along her jaw, a reminder of a child who once stole faces. As you command. Night rose like ink spilled across parchment. Fires guttered in the Volantene camp as patrols shifted into half-wakefulness, lulled by the steady susurrus of running water. On the Meereen's shore, Dothraki horses stamped and snorted but did not neigh. Aedra had insisted on stuffing their nostrils with cloves and tying muzzles with padded cloth to mute any startled whicker. The Khalasar murmured Dothraki prayers to night and river. Freed folk from Astapor and Yunkai stood silent, gripping half-pikes whose shafts still smelled of freshly sawed cedar. Only dragons spoke aloud. In distant darkness, Drogon and Regal traded echoing bellows across barren highlands, unsettled by the massing of so many hearts beating fear. Aedra emerged from shadow clad in tarnished scale half-armor salvaged from a Giskari crypt, plates blackened with soot to kill moonglare. Two figures padded behind. Terra Sand, a lithe Plankytown smuggler whose skin bore tattooed serpents, and Villo, a former pit slave of Astapor whose broad chest rose like iron bellows. Neither asked who had taught the assassin such silent footwork. It was enough that their queen trusted her. They slipped into the shallows where tethered fishing coracles bobbed like hollow skulls, climbed onto one carved with leaping squid. Aedra tied reeds across its rim to break reflection and dampen slap. Terrace and Villo took oars of padded willow. With breaths held, they pushed into the current, letting the river's slow bulge swallow them. Dark swallowed sound. No lapping, no or creak. Only the pulse in Aedra's ears counted time. She scanned the water ahead. There an anchor buoy carved like a leaping dolphin, painted red. That would mark the outer spool barge. She tapped Terrace's shoulder twice. He pivoted the coracle. They drifted broadside into a curtain of shadow cast by the barge's stern lantern. Two Volantene Marines leaned over the rail, passing a skin of wine. In their laughter, Aedra tasted complacency. She mouthed, "Wait." Minutes stretched, coiled tight, then slackened. The guards wandered bowward, voices fading beneath thrum of rigging. Aedra slipped over the gunwale. River breath iced her lungs. She felt each plate of armor drink cold like lead weights, yet the drag reminded her she was alive. Mask's deadened sense, cold revived it. She sculled under the hull until her fingers brushed barnacle-rough oak. Terrace and Villo followed, tethered by silk coil loops. A torch flared briefly topside, sentry resettling. Aedra listened, footsteps receding aft. She drew the basilisk shard from its wax sleeve, set her lips upon the glass sliver to kiss away residual poison. Tonight the shard served only as lockpick. The true venom lay in a bladder of purple viperfish oil strapped over her ribs, potent enough to clot a heart in 3 beats if it reached blood. It would never reach Daenerys's heart, she reminded herself again. But slaves and masters alike would bleed here before dawn. Half submerged, she located the spool house, iron teeth biting the chain. River silt muffled the rattle. Iron clanked. 2 engineers above argued in Volantene over tension ratios. Aedra timed each metallic clang to mask her own. Dagger met spike bolts. She eased them free. 1, 2, 3, a breath. 4th bolt jammed under torque. She rotated grip, pressed pommel, pop. The spool plate sagged. Aedra wedged a wedge of hollowed dragonglass between teeth and ratchet. Then she cut the tarred hemp brake line and let current whisper slack through link upon link. A soft groan throbbed through the hull, deep gut sound that might pass for timber shrinkage. Chain hissed, faster, until links screeched. Above, a shout cracked. Aedra flattened, water swallowing her ears. Lanterns swung, orders barked. Yet already the chain's braided mass slithered like an iron serpent into deep mid-river, current hauling it sideways, coiling tension across the triangular fleet. Weight transferred. A second barge jerked forward, bow yawing. Lantern poles toppled. Panic blossomed. The flagship's lookout trumpet bleated alarm. From Meereen's shore, horns replied, Dothraki war horns, unsullied bugles, the throaty timpani of slave drums repurposed from Yunkish carnival wagons. On the ridge, Daenerys raised her arm. Drogon answered with thunder, silhouette flaring against stars as he hurtled from the dark hills. Flame roared over chain-tangled masts. Sailcloth burst into sunflowers of fire. Aedra surfaced, gasping. An arrow hissed inches past, hiss lost in roar of hulls grinding. Terrace swung a hooked blade, severing mooring slips. Villo bellowed triumph, muscles bulging as he rode them into whirlpool wake that had once been Volantene discipline. Above the maelstrom of ships careening, Daenerys's Khalasar thundered down the slope. Horses plunged. Water rose in fans of silver. Unsullied advanced in shield phalanx behind. Fire crowned their charge, dragons strafing. River spray turned to boiling mist. Chains snapped like harp strings. The fleet's center lost anchor, hulls colliding. Galleys drifted broadside to tide. Present Angibelli and oars to Dothraki archers already mid-flood. Barbs lit with pitch-struck decks. Rains of flame danced on soaked planks until smoke curtained the stars. Aedra's coracle skidded alongside a half-sunk barge listing to port. She leapt, planting boots on rail just as an elephant's squeal echoed. Volantines pushing armored war beasts down gangplanks in futile bid to hold riverbank. The creatures flailed, terror-mad amid churning water. Some toppled, carts and pikemen tumbling after. One beast's flank caught fire. It trumpeted and plowed men beneath frothing wake. Night fractured into shards. Screams, clanging steel, draconic roars flensed raw by wind. Aedra carved her way through confusion. Blade whispers too swift to register until throats bloomed red. She sought vantage for the flare signal she carried. When all chains lay cut, she must announce. But already the river told its own tale. No anchor lines held. Flagship drifted helpless. She glimpsed a crimson pennon emblazoned with a crowned elephant. An officer tried rallying crossbowmen. Regal stooped, claws shredding sail, green fire engulfing group and pennon alike. On the eastern bank, freedmen surged, grappling with Marines. Perfumed Volantine nobles in lacquered breastplates discovered that slaves who had tasted freedom under the Dragon Queen fought without fear of dying. Barristan Selmy led a wedge of Unsullied across a floating spar, white-cloaked even in battle's grime, blade a flicker of moonlight. Dario vaulted a parapet, stiletto in one hand, Myrish crossblade in the other, reckless grin wide as dawn. And in the maelstrom's heart, Daenerys Targaryen rode silver mare Jogo had stolen for her 4 nights prior, cloak of ash-colored wool snapping behind. No coronet crowned her, yet firelight made one. She speared toward the flagship's drifting deck, unsullied shields raising a living causeway. Aedra saw Archer's sight on her queen, felt time dilate, an assassin's instinct. She sprinted rail to rail, vaulted a collapsed gangway, landing amid scattered barrels. Her dagger teased free a length of line. She looped it to a half-shattered cleat, swung across 10 yawning feet of bubbling river. Boots landed on flagship deck with hollow thud. A crossbowman raised crank. Aedra slashed bowstring.
Bolt slottered harmless.
She back-kicked the man into the drink, turned, parried a deck officer's short glaive, rammed elbow into his temple. Out of corner eye she saw Daenerys ascend the outer ladder 2 levels below, Grey Worm leading. Arrows rained at them, some pinging off unsullied shield wall, some glancing Jogo's borrowed mare which screamed, reared, tossed the queen forward into Grey Worm's arms. Aedra's lips moved silently. Not yet. She advanced toward the quarterdeck where the chain winch still clattered, jammed by its own unraveling. 2 Volantine engineers frantically hammered at the brake. She hurled herself among them and drove dagger pommel into a skull. Blade sliced the other's thigh, hamstring severed. She kicked the final brake lever free. Iron screamed. The chains remaining slack fled like water down a sluice. Spools spun wild, rivets popping in trails of sparks. A final metallic crack resounded, then silence. Inside that hush, the river roared. Victory claimed in its currents. Horn signals blared. 3 low, 1 high, the Queen's cross-river call. Aedra untied a crimson flare from belt, struck spark. Red plume columned skyward, painting smoke crimson. Across the bank, horns answered in triumph. Dragons wheeled, their fire shifting from ships to retreat lines. Volantines broke, scattering upstream where darkness and marsh swallowed them. Aedra exhaled. Only then did she register pain. A crossbow quarrel grazed ribs, slicing armor scales and flesh. She pressed heel of palm to stem blood. A footstep behind. She spun, blade raised. But it was Daenerys, soot-streaked, lilac eyes blazing with unspent fury. "Do you still guard me?" the queen rasped. Aedra knelt. "Until death." "Whose?" The queen's tone was not jest. Aedra lifted face, let the mask slip a breath. "Whichever the many-faced god requires, may it be mine first." Daenerys studied her, seeing more than features, the space where a name should be. "Not tonight," she said. She offered her hand. Aedra clasped it. Grey Worm signaled Unsullied to secure deck. Dario vaulted beside them, grin slick with blood spray. "A fine little skirmish, my queen." he crowed. "Shall we write a ballad? Write the piece first." Daenerys replied, voice grave. She surveyed water littered with burning hulls, elephant corpses drifting belly up. "Tomorrow we parley. Volantis will kneel or burn." Smoke drifted. Stars hid. The night had devoured its own children and birthed something new. A crossing carved from fear and flame, and in its ashes a pact stronger than gold, forged between queen and killer. Dawn crawled across a wasteland of wreckage. Charred timbers bumped the mud flats. Gray cinders spiraled upward in feeble thermals, last sighs of ships that had once carried slaves in iron cages. Now chain links lay twisted like dead serpents on shore. Unsullied detachments searched through heaps for survivors, offering the quick mercy of a sword to any beyond healing. Dothraki youths raided captured stores, emerging with casks of sweet wine and barrels of hard-baked bread. A strange carnival hush settled, victory without celebration. For every man and woman sensed the tide of greater wars still to crest. In a commandeered pavilion near a splintered jetty, Daenerys convened council. Aedra stood behind her chair, hood shadowing face, but every sharp-eyed courtier noticed the assassin's palm rest upon a curved hilt with proprietary ease. Dario's smirk widened. Barristan's eyes narrowed in private speculation. Even Missandei's brow knitted a moment before smoothing into serenity. Rumor already crusted the air, that the queen's new shadow had once been sent to kill her and had chosen instead to slay her killers. Truth, half-truth, fancy, all fermented fast inside war camps. On a low trestle lay spoils. Sealed scroll tubes bearing the Twin Towers sigil of House Malakwo, a portfolio of contracts between Volantines and Yunkai, ledger tablets recording purchase of Carthene cell sales, a single Volantine whip of woven silver strands tipped with lapis lazuli beads, a slave master's badge. Daenerys touched each with reverence akin to rage. "Captain General Malirio fled upriver at second watch," reported Grey Worm. "Our outriders pursue. He abandoned most elephants and 2,000 infantry." "Let him run," Dario urged. "Elephants cannot cross desert. We ride straight to Meereen before Yunkai or Astapor can muster new chains." Daenerys turned scroll tube over in fingers. "Malirio will not run forever. He will reach Volantis. Then all the free cities may rally. How many battles before I stand alone once more? I cannot chase every whip across Essos." Barristan cleared throat. "Your grace, history favors bold strokes. Westeros fed its dragon kings not with endless sieges but by planting fear in hearts of lords. Show Volantis the cost of enslavement, and others will weigh their profits against your wrath." Daenerys's gaze flicked to Aedra. "Fear can topple empires, but so can hope. We gave hope last night to slaves who saw ships burn. Now we must give them reason to build, not to plunder. Meereen is dying beneath plague and treachery. I must return." Dario unsheathed a dagger, rolled it across knuckles. "Then we sail upriver at once, before Yunkai's gold buys fresh knives." Aedra stepped forward, voice low. "A knife has already been bought." Council eyes snapped to her. She withdrew a tiny lacquered box from belt, set it on table. Inside lay a coin minted in bravos. Iron, scratched, bearing the hooded visage of the many-faced god. "Someone new carries this," she said. "The House of Black and White does not forget unfinished prayers. They will come again." Dario barked laugh. "Let them. I will hang their faces on my belt for trophies." Barristan's palm smacked table. "Take care with such boasts, Sellsword. I rode beside Prince Rhaegar. I have known fear. The Faceless Men are no tavern assassins." Daenerys closed the box. Resolve sharpened lines about her mouth. "Then we prepare. How does one guard against the many-faced god?" Aedra's answer chilled the room. "He is everywhere. You guard by trusting no certainty except purpose. Purpose binds watchers. Purpose unmasks lies." She met Daenerys's eyes. "We travel in smaller columns, vary routes, share food only from known kitchens, water from guarded springs, letters sealed with dragon wax. And you keep me close." Silence thickened. Even torches seemed to dim. Daenerys nodded once. Then you shall be my shadow. My court will call you Hand of the Veil if they wish, but you will answer only to me." Grey Worm looked uneasy. Barristan's jaw tightened, but he bowed. Missandei smiled faintly, as if a small kindness had prevailed. Dario only twirled dagger with theatrical flourish. Council adjourned to muster march. Outside, sun climbed, heat drawing stench of charred flesh. Aedra lingered behind, rolling the Bravosi coin across knuckles, feeling its cool bite. She wondered which face the next assassin would wear. Perhaps an Astapori wine girl, perhaps a Myrish minstrel, perhaps a Dothraki groom leading spare mounts. She hoped, for their sake, they were swift. 2 days' ride south along the Skahazaden churched their bones with exhaustion. The Khalasar fanned wide to forage scrub grasses for horses, while Unsullied marched in disciplined blocks along riverbanks clogged with driftwood from burned hulls. Plague rumor chased them, stories of pale mare outbreaks ahead, of Yunkai contracting Carthene alchemists to poison wells. At dusk, scouts returned rattled. Skeletal corpses nailed to roadside trees, tattered banners reading, "Free men choose chains." Daenerys ordered the dead burned and ashes given to wind. That night, Aedra prowled rotating perimeter watch. Her breath puffed mist under clouded moons. She felt assassin eyes in every brush, though none yet revealed. On the third circuit, she discovered fresh footprints near supply tent. Soft-soled, child-sized, pointing away, not toward. She traced them across dune fold until they vanished among clumps of sand nettle. There she found a small leather pouch bearing 3 obsidian beads carved as tears. In Bravos, such tears were tokens of regret offered to the dead. Here they spelled warning. She carried them to Daenerys' tent where flicker of taper outlined Queen hunched over campaign maps. When Aedra spilled beads upon parchment, Daenerys' hand stilled. Another message? Yes, they toy before striking. Daenerys touched a bead. "Once I was girl in a red door house, dreaming of a lemon tree. No one hunted me then. Why now? Because you changed the world," Aedra answered. "Every change breeds counterchange. Faceless men serve balance. They fear your scale has tipped too far." Daenerys laughed, soft and weary. Balance? Slavery and freedom balanced. In their creed, death balances all. Too many chains cut may unbalance markets of life. The Queen's smile vanished. "Then I will melt their balance on Dragonfire." Aedra thought of the House of Black and White's silent pool, of candles reflecting infinite masks. "Fire cannot burn water," she murmured. "Then I must become storm and sea." Light left the taper wick. Shadows deepened, hugging Queen and assassin close as breath. Across dusty cloth walls, camp torches cast silhouettes of unsullied pacing watch. The night felt brittle. One wrong whisper could shatter it. Daenerys reached for Aedra's wrist. "If they come, will you hesitate again?" Aedra recalled the pit, the glass shard in her palm, the Queen's fragile tears.
"No."
"Whichever face appears, I will end it before it ends you." Lilac eyes probed hers, saw truth etched by sleepless guilt. "Swear it." "I swear by the god who has no name and by every name he bears." Daenerys exhaled, shoulders easing. "Then let us rest. Tomorrow we ride home." They lay on separate mats yet dreamt the same dream. A city of broken harpies where chains crumbled into dust and children painted new sigils on clean walls. But beyond the dream, a shadow stropped knives in patience. Meereen's silhouette rose on 7th day, those pyramids now draped in patchwork banners of claim. Harpy heads daubed in red by rebel freedfolk, black dragon wings stenciled by street urchins, green Zerak florals flown by nobles seeking favor whichever way the wind shifted. Siege towers ringed North Quarter, built by Yunkish engineers but abandoned when word of Volantene rout spread. Chunks of masonry rent the plaza where once Daznak's pit overflowed with blood sport. Above the great gate, the bronze harpy still hung, though its bronze breasts now pitted by dragon flame. Before the Queen's army even crested the final ridge, the city gates opened. Out trundled a delegation of pale-concealed nobles bearing white silk flags. One collapsed before reaching negotiation ground. Plague pustules burst along his neck. The others pressed on, eyes drugged by terror. When Daenerys rode to meet them, Ra flanked her left, Grey Worm right, Barristan behind. The nobles fell prostrate, touching foreheads to dust. Their spokesman, Hisdar Zo Lorak's cousin Lasdar, croaked, "Please, Great Queen, Mother of Dragons, Bringer of Dawn, spare us. Sons of the Harpy hide in catacombs still, but we pledge fealty." The Yunkai host retreats. Maesters labor to cure Pale Mare. "Only your return can." Daenerys cut him short. "Spare words. Tell the traitors who still wear gold masks. Lay down blades. I will grant trial by council. Those who murdered freedmen will answer." Her voice carried across throng of refugees assembling outside walls. Many wept. Some raised fists in silent salute. "Trials will drown the streets in blood," Lasdar stammered. "Better you forget vengeance." Daenerys's eyes hardened into violet steel. "I forget nothing." Aedra's hand found dagger hilt as wind shifted. Dust eddies twisted between armies. She scanned faces. Every refugee, every sworn soldier, every cringing noble. There. A tinker woman in patched burlap, stooped with pack of clanging pans. Her gait too smooth for old bones, her eyes too clear. She pressed forward through crowd until near Queen's flank. One hand dipped into pack, emerging with brass ladle. But the angle of wrist was wrong. Not serving, striking. Aedra moved. 3 steps cut sideways, elbow clearing space, dagger reversed. The tinker's hand flashed, steel glint. A needle-thin stiletto disguised as panhandle. Aedra's blade caught wrist. Stiletto clattered. The woman pivoted, driving thumb for Aedra's eye. Faceless technique. Aedra ducked, palm heel crushing windpipe. The assassin staggered but tossed handful of crimson dust at Daenerys. Grey Worm leapt, shield raised. Dust puffed harmless against bronze. Barristan's sword severed the tinker's knees. She collapsed, but already her hands found hidden fang within boot. Aedra swooped, vicious slash across carotid. Blood fountained. Silence rippled outward. A child screamed. Refugees shrank away. Aedra knelt, pressing ear to assassin's lips. A wet gurgle. She tore away burlap hood. The face of a young Myrish pot girl she had once glimpsed at a Braavosi dock. No, only a mask of flesh seamlessly worn. She closed the lifeless eyes, murmuring Braavosi prayer. When she rose, blood painted her wrists. She wiped it on sand. Daenerys regarded crimson stain as omen. "It never ends." "Yes," Aedra whispered, though which meaning? Never ends the killing or never ends the devotion? She could not tell. The delegation shuddered, seeing threat ended. Lasdar licked cracked lips. "Mercy, Great Queen?" Daenerys exhaled, looking at bodies, at city trembling in disease. "Mercy for those who lay down arms. Justice for those who cling to masks. I will sit queen in Meereen tonight." She wheeled Jogo's silver. Army advanced. Banners of black on red rose on wind like storm crows. That night, Daenerys entered the throne room of broken harpies. Flames in bronze braziers danced ghostlight across cracked marble. Freedmen lined colonnades, singing low Mysa, Mysa. Dragons circled spires, their roars rolling thunder across gulf of night. Aedra stood at base of dais, eyes sweeping every alcove. She sensed no immediate threat. Still, her muscles braced. One assassin slain did not erase the debt. The coin remained. Perhaps another would come tomorrow, wearing the face of a healer tending plague, or a scribe copying royal decrees, or a child offering flowers. Daenerys sank onto marble seat still scorched by harpy torches. She looked small amid ruin, yet radiated heat that set banners trembling. She raised hand for silence. "People of Meereen," she said, voice carrying, "I left you in search of peace and found war. I return with war behind me and peace ahead. Peace we make ourselves, brick by brick, breath by breath. The old masters chose chains. I choose life. Help me build it." Cheers erupted, not jubilant, but weary, hopeful, real. Aedra watched Queen's face soften, saw tears glimmer. She felt her own throat tighten. strange for one who had smothered infants in cradle. Emotion unsettled her, but she let it be. After applause faded, Daenerys gestured Aedra forward. "This is Aedra of no house," she declared. "She has walked unseen paths to keep me breathing. She is my dagger in darkness. Honor her as you honor me." Gasps, murmurs. Assassin, savior, shadow sister. Aedra bowed, resisting urge to vanish into them. Later, when Hall emptied into corridors of echo and smoke, Aedra and Daenerys walked alone toward moonlit terrace. A single brazier crackled. Dragons roost above, vast silhouettes melding with night. Daenerys leaned on cracked balustrade. "The many-faced god will come again." "Yes. Will you face him forever?" Aedra considered stars above, cold witness to mortal vows. "I will face him until my face is his." "And after?" Aedra's lips curved faintly. "After, another will stand where I stand, if your flame still burns." Daenerys nodded, as if answer pleased. She turned, brushing Aedra's fingertips. "A spark bridging queen and killer. Together, then we burn the night." Below, the city side. Above, dragons lazily beat wings, stirring breezes that smelled of ash and dawn. Aedra felt the basilisk shard in her pouch. Dull now, purpose spent. She flicked it over wall, spun, catching moon, then vanished into fog. A life saved for a life surrendered, hers perhaps when the balance called. But not tonight. Tonight, the faceless woman kept her queen alive. Tonight, death had chosen other harvests. Weeks unfurled, heavy with rebuilding. Anduin Square filled with lumber piles stacked by freedmen crews. Citadel surgeons plied new poultices against pale mare. Dragons hunted desert goats, returning sated instead of incinerating fish markets. Word spread to Yunkai and Astapor of Volantine capitulation treaties. No more slave voyages past Valyria. Half their fleets scuttled under Dragon Watch. Merchants in Karth cursed and capitulated in same breath. Gold shifted, power lines redrew. But behind painted plaster, whispers persisted. Of brazen idolaters preaching return to old order, of Sellswords smuggling crossbows disguised as looms, of faceless strangers glimpsed at dusk near pyramids. Aedra multiplied her precautions. Double tastings, sealed cisterns, routes randomized hourly. She slept at base of Daenerys's bedchamber door, dagger across knees. One humid midnight she woke, keen sense prickling. She rolled silently, palm on hilt. On balcony, a figure crouched, silhouette framed by halo of lantern moths. Not an assassin, too tall, posture hesitant. It was Tyrion Lannister, dwarf of Casterly Rock, eyes glimmering with candle mischief. He had sailed from Pentos with reports of Westeros politics shifting. He bowed low. "Forgive me, I could not sleep hearing dragons above. Thought to see them. Instead I find dragon's shadow." He inclined head to Aedra. "Go inside," she hissed. He raised hands, palms empty, merely admiring moonlight. "But since we are here, perhaps you might share any faces I should avoid wearing should I wish to keep mine." Aedra scowled but sensed no threat. She stepped aside. Daenerys emerged, robe of simple linen. "Tyrion, you wander. Queens breed insomniacs," he quipped. Spotlight of moon traced his scar. Then his tone sobered. "Ravens from Westeros arrived. Tommen dead, Cersei missing, Highgarden under siege. The Seven Kingdoms are ripe as a peach in sun." His gaze shifted to Aedra. "But peaches spoil quickly if not plucked." Daenerys looked to Aedra. "Will you ride west with me?" Aedra answered without hesitation. "The narrow sea has many faces. I can borrow one." Tyrion smiled wryly. "Perhaps best not the face of Lannister. Too many debts." Daenerys's laugh rang, pure as celebration rarely allowed. Then she turned serious. "In Westeros they fear dragons. Let them fear but also know justice. If assassins trail us, let them find only cinders." Aedra bowed. Inside she framed plan after plan. Safe houses in lists, silent disguises among septon orders, poison traps within throne room door jams. The many-faced god's reach was long, but she would keep one step ahead, dancing in that sliver between mercy and murder. As dawn bled pink along horizon, bells of Meereen tolled. First time in months they rang not for alarm but for hope. Fishermen pushed skiffs onto morning tide. Children chased goats through alleys where harpies once perched. Smoke still curled from broken roofs, but hearth smoke, not pyres. Change had roots now. Daenerys watched sunrise with tears unshed. Aedra contemplated her reflection in bronze shield leaned against wall, features lit gold, yet eyes shadowed by all the faces she had worn. She wondered if one day she would lay aside masks permanent ly. Perhaps when dragons nested in red keep towers and chains were museum relics. Or perhaps never, because someone must guard dreamers, and dreamers make enemies legion. She stepped beside the queen. Together they breathed dawn. Far across sea, in a silent Bravosi temple, an acolyte extinguished a candle and lit another. Wax melted, flame danced. On a black ledger, a quill scratched new name beneath Daenerys Targaryen's. The name of an assassin who had turned from contract owing balance. Two names twined by debt. When the Faceless Men came again, death would claim one or both. Yet Quill had no knowledge of dragons, or of bonds stronger than coin. The many-faced god might smile, but Dawn cared nothing for smiles. Dawn kept rising, and as it rose, a silver queen and her shadow prepared to sail into storms no prophecy had charted, their hearts beating one vow, until the last face falls. Gray clouds rolled low over Meereen like bruises that refused to fade, but the harbor smelled of beginnings. Tar, salt, and freshly planed oak. Long quays thrummed with toil as freedmen fitted plank to keel, listening to the deep-bellied call of draft beasts turning capstans. 6 galleys lay half-rigged in the shallows, their figureheads carved as serpents, wyverns, and a great black dragon whose open maw promised fire upon foreign seas. Canvas bill-sewed on drying racks. Coils of pale hemp waited to be spliced into running line. Ships here were no longer the gilded slave hulks of Astapor or Volantis. They were lean, hungry hulls designed to slice the narrow sea under the banners of a queen who bore no chain but memory. Stone steps curved from the shipyard to the terrace of the Green Grace's ruined garden. Their Aedra practiced at dawn, barefoot on grit, blades flickering in patterns older than the fall of Valyria. Each movement cut silence, carving air into shapes of intention. Thrust, pass, feint, withdraw. Sweat slicked her back. The morning scour wind dried it to salt. She welcomed the burn. It reminded her that flesh, unlike masks, must be earned each day. At the garden's edge, Daenerys watched, cloak gathered tight against the chill. Lilac eyes followed every arc, every pivot. The queen held herself still as marble, yet her fingers twitched, tracing invisible copy of each stroke. When Aedra finished, she resheathed her knives without flourish and bowed. "You see spaces," Daenerys said, voice husky with dawn, "where others see walls." Aedra wiped palm down thigh. "Spaces show themselves to those who look between." The queen approached, sandals soundless on crushed tile. "Teach me." A rueful smile tugged Aedra's mouth. "Your grace, you command dragons. Dragons burn armies. They do not catch a blade meant for my heart." She gestured to a box at her feet, a slender length of dark wood sealed with hammered copper. Thuras of Myr unearthed this in Qohor. A Bravosi Bravo's sword forged of dark steel and shade oil, light as laughter. "Will you set my hands upon it?" Aedra hesitated. A queen wielding such steel would invite every assassin to sharpen pride upon her. Yet to refuse was to deny dawn. She knelt, unclasped hasp, the lid side open. Inside rested a swan-neck rapier whose blade shimmered like wetted slate, fuller etched with glyphs so tiny only a cat's eye might read. Daenerys reached, but Aedra's hand shot out first, capturing the hilt. "Feel the balance before you claim it." She placed it across Daenerys's palms, guiding the grip between finger and thumb. The queen flexed wrist, blade tipped, recovered. A dancer finding first breath of music. "Come," Aedra said. "Slow. Feet follow hips. Hips follow sight. Sight follows breath." She traced a half-circle around her pupil. Point is needle, arm the thread. Stitch the empty cloth. For an hour they moved among broken columns where Jasmine once climbed. Stone dust rose beneath their steps, catching sun that finally pierced clouds. Daenerys's first cuts were stiff, fitful. Soon her shoulders learned economy. Weight shifted fluid. She nicked the trunk of a dead oleander, bark flecking off like parchment. Pride flickered in her laugh. Then concentration returned. Grey Worm arrived as light climbed higher, helm tucked beneath elbow. "My queen," he called. "Council waits." Daenerys lowered rapier, chest heaving. "Tell them to wait a moment more." She faced Aedra. "Again at dusk?" Aedra inclined head. "Dusk, and again at moonrise if you wish." Grey Worm's eyes lingered on Assassin a heartbeat. Respect there and caution. He escorted Queen away, their shadows blending until only silence and the scent of dust remained. Aedra exhaled. A day would come when Daenerys's blade might parry death's delicate kiss. But the House of Black and White did not wager on tomorrows. Its agents harvested today's. She collected her knives, strapped them under sleeves, and slipped through hidden stairs into the warren of tunnels connecting pyramid and harbor. A lattice of forgotten passages carved during Harpy dynasties to smuggle spice, flesh, and fear. Few living souls knew them now, save certain smugglers and one woman who once paid tithe in Bravosi coin. Tonight she would walk these tunnels again, seeking echoes of footsteps not her own. The midday council gathered in a pillared chamber stripped of its gilt war mosaics, now hung with rough banners. A red sunburst for freedmen, a white hand upon black for unsullied, the three-headed dragon stitched in sable silk for Daenerys Stormborn. Sawdust scented the air, carpenter crews repairing stone benches shattered during the suns of the Harpy riots. Torch brackets burned smokeless oil. No Harpies remained overhead. Aedra had personally toppled the last mutilated idol into the palace cistern 6 nights earlier. Tyrion Lannister sprawled in a wicker chair near the map table, wine cup balanced on knee. Barristan Selmy stood ramrod beside him, scanning parchments. Missandei orchestrated scribes with quiet authority. Dario lounged near an open archway, sunlight catching the gold tooth in his grin. Grey Worm kept sentinel behind Queen's seat. Even Hisdar zo Lorak, freed from crypt arrest but stripped of titles, occupied a lesser stool. His penitent presence a reminder that old nobility now bent knee. Daenerys entered, rapier at hip, curls damp from washing. Council rose. She motioned them to sit. "Progress?" she asked. Tyrion drained cup. "Volantis ratified your embargo charter. No slave vessel may fly striped sails beyond their harbor." Karth sent politely worded threats masked as trade offers. And Pentos, bless the magisters. Pledges grain if you contain your dragons. He waggled brows. Perhaps we ship them a polite refusal wrapped around a scorched mast. Barristan unrolled a vellum draft. "Sir, grain we can use. Threats we can disregard for now. What of Westeros?" He tapped 7-pointed star sigil drawn upon the parchment coast. "Reports speak of Stannis Baratheon camped at Winterfell, the Tyrells seizing King's Landing, and Blackfish Tully retaking Riverrun." "Chaos," Tyrion observed, "is my family crest." Daenerys studied the map. A dragon conquers through flight, not crawl. Yet ships are not ready. "How long?" Hisdar cleared throat meekly. 3 moons, my queen, if carpenters work night and day. And still we lack sailcloth enough for more than 4 mains. Dario waved. "Hire Ibonese traders. They weave whale wool sturdy as chainmail." "Whale wool adds weight," Grey Worm said. "Fleet slows. Storms will break masts." Tyrion filled his cup anew. "Steal the fleet too much and it sinks at quayside. We need cunning, not fortress hulls. I propose we refit captured Volantine triremes immediately. Rowers can serve oars or win freedom at journey's end. Meanwhile, carpenters, finish your dragon galleys for later reinforcements." Daenerys's gaze sought Aedra in shadows. The assassin leaned against pillar, face unreadable. "What say you?" the queen asked. Aedra stepped forward, voice level. "Rowers chained to benches may revolt mid-channel. Promise them freedom and gold upon landing. Bind them by oath and hostages. Families kept safe in Meereen under unsullied guard. They will row hard to see loved ones again. Dario clicked tongue. Hard bargains from soft lips. Aedra's stare cut him. Soft lips spilled your blood once. He laughed, touched scar at jaw, said no more. Daenerys nodded. So be it. Tyrion draft oaths. Missandei have scribes record freed hostages' names. Grey Worm, assign guards. The council moved to next agenda. Plague control. Healers reported new fevers beyond East Market. Aedra listened, eyes scanning doorways. Twice she noted liveried messengers entering with scrolls. Checked their faces, ruled them safe. But one servant bearing a cask of rosewater lingered near the queen's goblet. His gait not quite servile enough. When he passed behind Daenerys' chair, Aedra glided closer. She touched the cask. Fingertips came away sticky. Sap of purple heart tree, mild narcotic masking scent of widow's blood. A swift poison. She seized the servant's wrist. Pulse hammered too calm. He tried to pivot, but her knee slammed ribs. Blade kissed spine beneath tunic, severing cord. He sagged, eyes wide. Council leapt up, swords half drawn.
No s'aden mus, adragist.
She dragged the servant to floor, tore hairnet free. Beneath, scalp shaved smooth save a single braid. Mark of Sarnori coin killers. She forced lips open. Tongue bore black sigil of bravos. A hush-cloaked chamber. Tyrion muttered. And here I thought your presence would discourage further petitions from the killing guild. Aedra searched tunic, produced folded parchment. A death writ sealed in wax stamped with a harpy breaking chains. The insurgent mark of the last dance. A harpy splinter cell rumored dead. She handed it to Daenerys. The queen read, eyes narrowing. They will never relent. Then neither shall I, Aedra replied. Barristan signaled unsullied to remove corpse. Council resumed with faces blanched, hearts thrumming. At dusk Aedra returned to the garden for sword drill, but Daenerys did not appear. Instead Missandei arrived carrying a sealed scroll. My queen asks you meet her upon Dragon Roost. She pointed skyward where the pyramid's upper terrace blurred against fading cobalt. Aedra scaled narrow service stairs carved between buttress and wall. Wind gathered strength, whipping cloak. At the summit she passed through iron gate into vast open platform where dragon chains lay rusted and broken. Drogon perched upon a collapsed parapet, wings mantling, eyes ember red in gloom. Regal crouched across, tail lashing. Viserion soared above, golden shadow hunting night swifts. Between them stood Daenerys, arms bare, silver hair loose. She held no sword, instead a shallow bronze bowl glimmered at her feet. Coals smoked within, burning blue-scented resin. Aedra halted 10 paces away. You summoned. Daenerys gestured. Step into circle. Wit. A chalk ring encircled the brazier, traced with sigils, Valyrian glyphs and a spiral of Bravosi prayer. Flame lit them azure. Aedra approached warily. What rite is this? Trust. Daenerys extended dagger, one of Aedra's own, stolen perhaps moments earlier. Cut me. Aedra blinked.
No.
You swore no hesitation. Daenerys rolled sleeve, exposing inner forearm. A small cut here. Then we speak. Dragons watched, rumbling low. Heat of their breath shimmered. Aedra slid blade free. She pressed edge against queen's skin, nicked vein shallow. Blood welled ruby. Daenerys did not flinch. She held arm over brazier. Blood pattered onto coals, hissing. Your turn, Daenerys said. She grasped Aedra's wrist, sliced matching cut. Blood dripped, sizzling like twin serpents. Cinnamon smoke curled, stinging eyes. Daenerys spoke old Valyrian words. Aedra recognized half, oaths of kinship, binding of blood after battle. Now, the queen continued in common, we share flame. As mine burns, so does yours. Should death seek me, it shall pass through you first. Aedra felt smoke invade lungs. Not choking, but filling with fierce warmth. Dragons roared. Their voices shook stone. Regal prowled nearer, nostrils flaring at mingled scents. Drogon surveyed with black wings half-spread, muscles cording tight and strong. Daenerys clasped Aedra's sanguine forearm. Blood mingled. You walk the shadows for me. I walk daylight for you. One cannot live without the other. She pressed wound to wound. Pain flared, then dulled beneath rush of heat, like winter frost meeting forge. Aedra's pulse formed new drumbeat. She felt consciousness stretch, her breath mixing with dragon fire, her vision flickering with images. Fleeting memory of red door, lemon tree, warm sand, clanging coins, silent pool of bravos, all fused. A gale thundered as Viserion landed. Scales rattled roof tiles. He thrust snout, sniffed blood. Aedra stood motionless, trusting oath. Daenerys stroked Viserion's jaw. He knows you now. Aedra withdrew blade, wiped on own sleeve. This bond, does it shield you from the house of black and white? No, Daenerys said. But now, should they kill me, they risk kindling fury of one whose life is fused to mine. Dragons respect fire in the blood. So will assassins, I hope. Aedra considered. They respect only contracts. A bond of blood may not sway them, but it sways me. The queen smiled. That suffices. Lightning flickered over distant bay. A storm approached, thunder low. Aedra sheathed dagger. Together they descended stair, leaving dragons to their roaring skies. Rain hammered Meereen for nights, drumming alley roofs, sluicing gutters clogged with blossoms shed from funeral pyres. Disease retreated before deluge. Plague flies drowned. Fever cooled. Shipwrights cursed delay yet welcomed fresh water for caulking barrels. Aedra used storm to cloak patrol, moving across rooftops, testing cistern brims for tampering, shadowing suspicious silhouettes that turned only to reveal frightened bakers, weary widows, one love-struck goat thief. On fifth night, storm broke. Stars emerged, brittle. Aedra returned to Queen's chambers, clothing soaked. She found Daenerys seated at ebony writing desk, letters strewn. Candle guttered low, wax river meandered. They mutter again, the queen said without looking up. Nobles claim you hold me spellbound with dark gifts. Let them, Aedra replied, peeling off wet cloak. I think you enjoy their fear.
No.
I enjoy their caution. Daenerys set cool down, massaged temples. I asked for guidance once. I received only prophecy that I dance with dragons. Now I dance upon knives. How do I know which cut will be fatal? Cuts by choice seldom kill, Aedra said. She knelt, unpacked small vial from belt. Amber resin of dream lily petals steeped in saffron. Breathe this. It eases mind without dulling blade. She uncorked, waved under Queen's nose. Daenerys inhaled. Shoulders loosed fraction. You are part healer, she murmured. Only wounds I've studied. Aedra rolled remedy cork tight. Sleep. I watch doorway, but Daenerys's glance lingered. Sit. Speak with me. She nodded to cushion beside hearth. Reluctant, Aedra complied. Fire crackled. Shadows danced across mosaic floor depicting a harpy shattered under chain. Rainwater dripped from eaves outside. Tell me a story, Daenerys asked. One from the faces you wore. Aedra's eyes softened, distant. A girl once sold oysters in Bravos. Pale hair, eyes green as coins. Everyone loved her laugh. But she was one of the faceless, sent to poison a cruel spice merchant. She kept failing, for she pitied him. He reminded her of someone. At last she disguised as his niece, served him oysters laced with sweet sleep, and while he dozed she cut his throat. Yet she wept. The kindly man asked why. She said the merchant dreamt of building orphan houses. His cruelty was fear. The god had demanded balance. Mercy wore a blade that night. Aedra paused, voice husky. The girl learned that killing feels different when the soul judged may not be wicked or pure, only human. She never laughed the same again. Daenerys leaned closer. Did she become you? Yes. Did killing me feel the same in your heart when you planned? Aedra's throat tightened. It would have killed me too. Daenerys touched her hand. Then promise me, if you ever must choose between the god and yourself, choose yourself. Silence stretched, fragile. Aedra looked at entwined fingers, pale and scarred. Will you choose yourself when dragons demand flame? The queen's eyes shimmered. I will choose the world I want for children yet unborn. And if the world does not want you, then I burn the world and build another. Aedra smiled grimly. We are not so different then. They shared quiet until wind died. At last Daenerys rose. Rest. Tomorrow we test the fleet. Morning unfurled bright as hammered bronze. The harbor buzzed. 3 refurbished Volantine triremes nudged seawall, oars at rest. For dragon-prowed dramans bobbed beyond, masts rigged with provisional sailcloth patched from Carthene silks and Giscari linen. Unsullied detachments marched aboard first vessel, securing decks. Freed rowers filed into hold, each wrist stamped with dragon seal signifying promise of wages and freedom. Aedra inspected rower chain rings, ensuring hinges removable. She spoke to men in Low Valyrian and the argot of River Rhoyne. Many stared at her in awe, whispering rumors of Shadow Queen. She moved on, satisfied. On quarterdeck of flagship Storm's Mercy, Daenerys stood at tiller, rapier belted, breeze lifting braid. Tyrion conferred with the Ibish navigator over charts. Regal soared overhead, screeching challenge to gulls. When all hands ready, signal horn blew. Oars dipped. Hulls lurched forward, prows cleaving cerulean swell. Aedra watched foam hiss along planks, the first leap towards Westeros. Hours into trial run, smoke plume rose astern portside. A supply barge tethered to dock burned, flames leaping. Screams echoed, sailcloth store ablaze. Aedra's spine stiffened. She flashed hand signals to deck archers. Stand ready. Grey worms drummers beat alarm. On shore, figures scurried. Saboteurs? Through spyglass Tyrion cursed. Harpy banners, last dance again. Aedra grabbed rope, swung to lower deck, sprinted to starboard tender. She cut loose, rowed alone toward quay. Water slapped hull. Acrid smoke bit lungs. On dock 8-mast harpies hurled pitch pots, igniting coil piles. Shipwrights fought with axes and clubs. Aedra beached tender, rolled onto planks. Knife flicked, cutting first harpy's hamstring. Second lunged with torch. She parried, drove elbow into windpipe, seized torch, flung into water. Third drew crossbow. Aedra ducked behind timber stack, handful of sawdust in grip. She flung dust into crossbowman's eyes, followed with dagger up under jaw. Blood sprayed wood grain. She twisted, sensing arrow whipped cloak. Arrow thudded into fabric. She slashed archer's bowstring, knee into groin, blade across throat. Flames roared higher. Mast spar crashed. 2 remaining harpies retreated, but unsullied spear line advanced from city gate, cutting escape. Saboteurs fell beneath bronze points. Aedra stamped fireline with wet canvas until sparks died. She dragged unconscious shipwright clear of burning tar. Harbor bells told ceasefire. Smoke drifted skyward, gray smudge against pure blue. Unsullied captain saluted. She nodded curt, surveyed wreck. 1 sail store lost, 2 barrels of tar, no critical timber. Yet message clear, the last dance still writhed. Back aboard Storm's Mercy, Daenerys heard report. She clasped Aedra's soot-smeared shoulder. You run toward fires others flee. It is my trade, Aedra said, coughing. Tonight feast is held in your honor. Aedra shook head. Honor invites jealousy. Celebrate rowers instead, they earn trust. Daenerys smiled. Very well, but know this. When I sit Iron Throne, bards will sing of the woman who guarded my flame. Bards, Aedra mused, seldom sing long of shadows. Still, music warms cold nights. Feast night, tables laden with river crab stewed in beer, lotus root fritters, skewers of spiced goat. Rowers and freedfolk mingled with unsullied and Dothraki in palace courtyard lit by lanterns of red and jade. Musicians plucked Giscari lyres. Children danced barefoot. Tyrion entertained with riddles. Dario performed knife tricks, earning shrieks of delight. Aedra stationed herself near Queen's dais, plate untouched. She scanned throng. Jugglers, servers, harpers, watchers at periphery. The assassin's mind ticked patterns, who stands where, weight of weapon hidden under cloak, angle of approach, escape routes over wall. A hush fell. Daenerys rose, chalice high. By blood and sweat we shape tomorrow. Tonight we share food, song, promise. Let chains remain broken. Cheers echoed, cups clanged. She drank. Music swelled anew. A dancer troupe entered, bodies painted gold, wearing feather masks. They moved in weaving serpentine, knees soft, hips sharp. Aedra focused. The lead dancer's eyes glimmered unnaturally pale. She tracked Queen's sidestep to rhythm. When dancer spun near dais, Aedra slipped forward, intercepting twirl. Palm caught dancer's wrist. Beneath gold paint skin felt chilled, pulse racing. Join dance, dancer whispered, accent bravosi. Aedra's grip tightened. Dancer yielded gracefully, wove away.
No weapon visible.
Aedra followed into swirl of bodies and drums. The troupe formed circle around Queen, arms raised. Lead dancer lifted a fan of plumed reeds, showered glittering dust over courtyard, fragrance of cinnamon and myrrh. Onlookers gasped at beauty. Aedra tasted air, no toxin, only powdered mica. Misdirection. She stepped behind dancer, seized fan, felt rigid edge. She snapped. A razor-thin blade folded within spilled free. Dancer hissed, whirled with elbow strike. Aedra ducked, tripped calf. Drums faltered. Crowd stilled. Aedra hauled mask off, revealing face of young man, shaven brows, eyes tattooed black tears. A murmur, faceless. Aedra marched captive to dais. Daenerys descended, face poised. Who sent you? Captive stared beyond horizon, lips parted, as if reading invisible text. Then he flexed jaw. Something crunched. Aedra recognized sound, glass capsule between molars. She clamped hand over mouth, too late. Foam frothed, eyes rolled, body slackened. Poison of widow's kiss, swift. Daenerys exhaled shaky breath. Feast resumed in uneasy patches. Laughter forced, drums softer. Later, Aedra knelt by corpse in side room, dissecting belongings. In sash pocket she found tiny scrolls stained with cedar oil. When dragon crosses narrow sea, father of flame must fall. Signed with symbol, a crescent moon crowned by arrow. Not harpy, nor bravosi. A new patron. She pocketed scroll. As dawn yawned, she sought solitude on rampart overlooking city. Bronze rooftops shimmered pink. Markets stirred. She considered stacking threats. Displaced harpies, faceless contracts, unknown moon arrow faction. Each sought Queen's life, but every failed attempt hardened Daenerys' legend. Each scar shaped kingdom unborn. A footstep. Tyrion joined, offered skin of wine. Thought you might need swallow. She shook head. Wine slows. He chuckled. You remind me of my brother Jaime in his stubborn years, except he preferred talking. He sipped. You know, killing assassins breeds fame, which lures more assassins. A self-polishing wheel. Better wheel than grave. True, but wheels break. He studied her. May I ask, why give up many faces for one queen? Aedra's gaze tracked rising sun. Because this face is mine at last. And if your god demands it back, I will ask him to wait until dragons dream no more. Tyrion raised skin in salute. Let's hope gods enjoy long naps. They stood in silence as city woke, each weighing futures measured by coin and blood. 1 month later the fleet sailed. Storm's mercy led, her hull now painted deep crimson, prow carved as roaring dragonhead. The triremes rode flanking triangles, Dramans under sail behind. Dragons circled high, wingtips gilding sun. Port of Meereen receded, pyramids shrinking to jagged tesserae. Below deck, Aedra inspected rower benches. Chains hung unfastened, keys at each captain's belt. Rowers sweated, chanting cadence in 20 tongues. Hope laced voices. She climbed to quarterdeck. Daenerys stood braced at rail, wind tossing silver mane. She smelled of salt and orange blossom oil. Aedra bowed. "First watch," Queen said, eyes on horizon. "Wind's favor." "A good omen," Aedra replied. Tyrion approached with chart roll. Course northwest to Karth Strait, then west past the Summer Sea rim, skirting Valyrian ruins. "Not Valyria," Daenerys interjected. "I will not risk stone men's curse." "Very well," Tyrion adjusted line. "We sail south of abandoned lands, then bear north into stepstones, hugging Lys waters." Aedra listened, scanning waves. She felt tension ease. Open sea offered no alley corners, no masked dancers. Yet poisons could hide in galley stores, sabotage in rigging bolts. She paced rigging walkway, checking splices. Suddenly the deck pitched. No wave, but lurch of hull. Shout from bow. "Debris ahead!" Aedra peered. Flotsam field of charred timbers. Black sails shredded. Carcasses of whales bobbed. Harpoon shafts protruding. Smoke still drifted. Daenerys ordered halt. Oars slowed. Aedra leaped to prow. Through spyglass. Hull fragments bore sigil of hammer over Kraken, the iron-born reavers of Old Wyke. Ships burnt less than a day ago. Dragons circled, uneasy. Grey Worm hailed lookouts. Survivors. Some timbers rolled. No men. Only gashes from giant claws, char marks unnatural. Aedra's mind raced. Dragons? No, their own beasts had not flown this far. Something else. Daenerys joined, color drained. Fire so hot it melted iron studs. Tyrion muttered. "Wildfire."
Noresedo.
Aedra dipped finger in water. Slick of black glassy ash clung. Obsidian flame. Daenerys inhaled. Lawler priests speak of shadow dragons, living fires tamed by the Lord's chosen. She gazed west where pale sun glared. Worry shadowed her features. Aedra sheathed glass. "Whatever burned these ships may hunt ours. We ready for sky." Orders relayed. Archers prepare scorpion bolts. Rig fire hoses. Secure powder stores. Dragons flew higher, scanning. Night fell. Fleet anchored in calm pocket. Aedra patrolled deck wings. Moon birthed silver path on sea. She felt presence, air growing warm beside. She turned. Daenerys, hair haloed. "Tonight I dream of black flames," Queen whispered. "Will you wake me if nightmares cross boards?" "I will stand until dawn." Daenerys's fingers brushed cut on Aedra's forearm, long healed. "Your blood and mine burned once. Let it burn those who hunt us." She retreated to cabin. Aedra watched stars reflect, glimpsing faces among ripples. Masks she had worn, masks yet to face. She closed fist around hilt, prayed in silent pool within memory. Vala Dohaeris, all men must serve. Then softer, to know God, all queens must live. Wind shifted, carrying scent of smoke distant. She tasted war on horizon, war and destiny entangled. Waiting. Dawn revealed stepstones on starboard, jagged isles, ruins of pirate holds. As fleet navigated channels, Lookout cried, "Sail south." Tyrion and Grey Worm lofted spyglasses. Purple-striped galleys flying Bravosi pennant, but rigging black. 20 ships, or banks foaming. Their prows forged as weeping faces. Faceless men? No, the guild never sailed fleets. Yet Coin could charter war flotilla. Trumpets summoned dragons. Drogon dived, roared challenge. Enemy ships unfurled mains. Catapult arms rose, pots sloshing dark fluid. Wildfire, Tyrion hissed. They would burn sea green. Aedra's hand found Daenerys' shoulder. Command. Queen's jaw clenched. We meet fire with wind. She signaled helm. Steer crosswind, lure enemy into lee. Dragons swooped, spewing flame to ignite catapult decks before pots launched. 2 galleys erupted, green-gold fire towering. Others veered, beaching on reef. But flagship among them advanced, prow armored thick. On forecastle stood a woman robed in scarlet, arms upraised, hair a smoke of copper, red priestess. She chanted as deckhands hauled black iron cage to rail. Inside writhed creature, whelp of dragon, scales mottled obsidian, wings stunted. Priestess set torch to cage. Bars glowed. Creature shrieked, exhaling jet of black-purple flame that hissed across water towards Storm's mercy. Aedra shoveled buckets over sail. Daenerys shouted for Regal. The green dragon dove, intercepting shadow flame. He roared white torrent, dueling. Two fires collided. Void black core formed, spitting sparks. Regal shrieked pain. Scales smoked. He retreated. Shadow flame licked Storm's mercy's hull. Pitch sizzled. Aedra doused Patch with brine-soaked cloth, saving planks. Drogon thundered. He rammed Priestess's flagship, jaws clamping mast. Wrenching. Sail collapsed. Catapult pitched overboard. Priestess stood unfazed, arms wide. Drogon loosed Crimson Furnace. Wild black flame met it, spiraled. Explosion rocked air. Drogon reeled but persisted. On Storm's mercy, Aedra seized Scorpion Ballista. Loaded obsidian-tipped bolts scavenged from old Valyrian hunting kit. She aimed at cage. Breath slow. Release. Bolt whistled, piercing bars, impaling shadow whelp. Creature exploded into shards of molten glass. Priestess screamed. Her robes ignited. Flame consumed flagship. Black fire died with spawn. Enemy morale shattered. Remaining galleys fled north. Dragons chased, torching stragglers. Daenerys gripped rail, eyes blazing. Shadow dragons. Someone breeds perversions of my children. Tyrion panted, ash-flecked. Melisandre? Or another red witch? Lawloress flames birth nightmares. Aedra wiped soot. Nightmares or prophecies. They fear you will extinguish their light. Queen turned to assassin. Will you light my way if gods turn against us? I am no god, Aedra said. Only blade. Then be my blade always. Grey Worm saluted. Damage minimal. We sail. Fleet resumed west. Corpses of enemy drifted. Green fire hissing out. Days later, fleet rounded Lys Strait. Westerosi gulls wheeled overhead. Smell of pine reached decks. Rowers murmured of home. Night anchored in sheltered cove. Fog rolled in thick. Aedra patrolled silent boards, senses straining. She heard faint splash portside. She peered. Shape clinging to hull, figure in slick black oilskin scaling rope. She crept. When intruder gained rail, she struck, blade to throat. Hood fell. Woman, dark curls, eyes aquamarine marked with tears tattoo. Bravosi again. She gripped vial at did throw, but Aedra twisted arm. Glass fell, shattered, acid hissing wood. Assassin hissed Bravosi curse, drove elbow. Aedra blocked, jabbed under rib. Blood coughed. Assassin fell, gasping, Vala Morgulis. Aedra whispered, Vala Dohaeris, before death claimed. Assassin rasped. The coin passes, west, awaits at Poison Bay, fool of kings. Voice stilled. Poison Bay, harbor north of Blackwater? Aedra dragged corpse to brig for interrogation, but life gone. She reported to Daenerys and Tyrion. Tyrion paled. Fool of kings, a tavern at Blackwater's mouth, smuggler haven. Someone prepares greeting. Daenerys's fists clenched. Let them gather. I will meet them with storm. Aedra looked at Queen's firelit face, saw resolve set like iron. She wondered how many faces must fall before Iron Throne yields. In her birth, she opened Cedar Scroll again, crescent moon symbol. She pondered meaning. Perhaps House Martell? Perhaps sorrowful men cult of Karth? She decided to carve new mask. One unknown to any guild. Using wax and cloth, she molded features of plain Dornish merchant woman. Olive skin, gentle eyes. She practiced voice, husky, accented by watermarkets of Sunspear. This face would walk King's Landing before Queen's procession, sniffing traps. Outside cabin, waves lapped steady. Aedra lifted gaze to ceiling, whispering prayer not to many-faced God but to the child who once sold oysters. Guide my hand true, let tomorrow breathe. She slept hour, dagger across chest. Landfall at Blackwater came beneath gray dawn drizzle. Fleet anchored off Dragonstone's lee to plan. Smoke curled from distant Dun's stony top. Stannis' camp rumored razed by northern snows months earlier. Empty now, save crows. Daenerys convened High Council. Tyrion detailed hidden tunnels under Red Keep, wildfire stockpiles, political factions. Tyrell Regency, Faith militant rise, Ironborn raids. Barristan urged swift strike. Dario favored rallying reach. Missandei counseled winning small folk first. Aedra proposed infiltration. She, disguised, enters King's Landing via Blackwater smugglers, learns enemy numbers, locates poisoners. Grey Worm volunteers 4 unsullied scouts. Daenerys agreed. You leave at dusk. I follow at dawn upon Drogon. City will wake to dragon wings. Before departure, Queen and assassin stood on Dragonstone battlement where once Aegon plotted conquest. Wind whipped cloaks. Sea thundered below. Daenerys placed hand on Aedra's cheek. Return to me. Aedra pressed forehead to Queen's. Always. She turned, descend cliff path to rowboat, heart thudding. She sailed under mist, wearing merchant face. Each stroke carried her toward looming walls of King's Landing, the lion's den. She inhaled scents of smoke, privy stench, distant lilac gardens. Bells tolled hour. Under hood she smiled grimly. The many-faced god's ledger thickened. But for once she would write the ending. And it would not be in blood of a dragon queen. She slipped into murk beneath Mud Gate, unseen. Smuggler tunnels reeked of mildew, pitch black except flicker of tallow torches. Aedra led unsullied scouts, their bronze masks replaced by ragged shawls. Rats scuttled. She mapped turns by Tyrion's sketches. At junction they encountered beggar girl cradling bundle. Eyes glassy, she offered coin for bread. When Aedra parted coins, girl whispered, purple cloaks watch flea bottom. Speak motley, die. They pressed on, emerging into ruined cellar of Potter's Row. Outside, alley life thrummed. Sellers hawking lamprey pie, dogs growling over bone, whores bargaining. September bells chimed across rooftops. Aedra melted into flow, ears pricking. She purchased sweet wine, eavesdropped taverns. Rumors. Tyrell bannermen ousted by Faith. Queen Marjorie imprisoned. Sparrow mobs patrol. Iron Bank envoys negotiate debts. At Fool of King's Tavern, she sat quiet corner. Sailors muttered of coin for killing Silver Witch and her black demon. A bald Bravo bragged he'd sailed with a healer from Karth who brewed heartstop elixir potent enough to fell mountain. She waits upriver with barrels, he slurred. Aedra signaled Unsullied to follow Miscreant when he left. They tailed to warehouse by hook docks. Inside, crates stamped with crescent moon. She pried lid. Glass vials nestled in straw, filled with purple viscous fluid. Heart silence. Carthene alchemical toxin absorbing through skin. Footsteps approached. Aedra hid behind crate. Torches entered. 5 figures, robed gray, faces blank clay masks. Faceless men. Their leader removed mask. Kindly man? No, a woman older, eyes milky. She addressed her followers. The contract persists. When Dragon Queen enters capital, smoke shall hide her fall. Spread the silence in sept braziers, storm drains, even on copper coins. The god wills balance. Aedra's muscles coiled. Alone she could kill perhaps 3, Unsullied 4, but toxin risk. She opted for sabotage. That night she slipped back with wax bombs, tallow laced with salamander oil. She placed at crate stacks, lit slow fuse. Quiet retreat. At dawn, warehouse erupted, violet flame devouring toxins. Shockwave shattered fisher huts. Noxious smoke billowed. Citizens panicked, but gas cleared quick. Chemicals consumed themselves. Atop city wall, Aedra watched sunrise bleed pink over Blackwater. Dragons' silhouettes winging from Dragonstone.
Bells rang Alarm.
She breathed deep, city air heavy with change. Flames of sabotage mirrored sun on Iron Throne spires. She signaled Unsullied. Ready. Drogon's roar answered sky. Daenerys had come. Aedra slid mask aside, revealing her own scarred jaw, eyes alight. She strode toward Mud Gate to open from within.
Stilrang.
Small folk screamed. Faith militant rallied. But above all thundered Dragonfire, red and gold. Gatehouse buckled under Drogon's assault. Aedra's unsullied open postern. Waves of Dothraki riders flooded.